Good morning. And so today we are back with the Magic School Bus inside the human body. This is day 4. I wanted to review with you some of the things that you should have in your response booklet. So for your sequence of events, your sequence should be in this order. Okay, I'm just going to read the numbers down the left-hand side. 6, 3, 5, 2, 8, 4, 1, 10, 7, 9. All right, so they should be in that order. And then for your pages 3 through, sorry, my paper is caught in the cord. For your pages 3 through 9, you should have some different information there. For the cells, you could have things like there are muscle cells, brain cells, lung cells. Maybe you had some other ideas for cells. You might have mentioned, oops, I'm on the wrong side. You might have mentioned that there were red and white blood cells as well. As you know, later on in your response booklet, we talk about specifics about the red and white blood cells. So those are some of the things you could have had there. You could have had that they were small. Then as far as the esophagus, that is the muscle that pushes food toward the stomach. It's a tube. It connects the stomach with the mouth. That's pretty much, the main concept of what the esophagus is and does. So then we go to the stomach. So on the stomach, we have walls move in and out. It churns and mashes food. Food becomes a thick liquid. And then we move on to the large intestines and the small intestines. So with those, I had things like, I kind of divided mine. I made a list of small on one side and large on the other side. And so for the small, I put coiled up, hollow, tiny fingers called villi. Villi contains blood vessels. Then on the large intestine side, I wrote waste goes out. And then just underneath where it says key details, it's about 25 feet long. Which is why they're coiled up. We can't have them stretched out. If they were stretched out, we'd be really tall. As the book says, we'd be taller than a house. That wouldn't work out so well. All right, so then you might have also said with the small intestines, you might have also said that food molecules go in through the villi, and that once the food is in the blood, it goes all over the body. That's part of the small intestines. So then we have our large intestines. We talked about the large intestines. Blood vessels. Blood vessels, I think, was the next part. Talks about the red and white blood cells. All right, so with the blood vessels, blood's not a liquid. Okay. It's not a red liquid. Blood is made up of cells that are floating around in a clear liquid. And then again, you have the red blood cells and the white blood cells. With the red blood cells, they carry oxygen from the lungs to the cells in the body, and then the white blood cells help destroy germs and diseases. The blood cells also look like tiny little rubber saucers. All right, so they kind of look like the tubes that you float in when you're in the pool. And then as far as the heart goes, the heart has 4 chambers. All right, and the chambers are hollow. Each chamber has a pump. 2 chambers are on the right side, and those are used to take in the used blood and pump it through the lungs so that it can get oxygenated in order to push it through the entire body. If you weren't sure where to find that, that's on page 20. And then we go on to the lungs. The lungs, which is in your response booklet on page 7. The lungs, there's 2 of them. And we know that The red cells pick up the oxygen, and the blood cells carry the oxygen back to the heart. All right, so the lungs use that. Then you have, I think your brain is next, right? The brain is next. And for the brain, that's the control center of your body. That's the main thing. If you don't have any other details, you need to know that the brain is the main control center of your body. It controls your heart, your breathing, any bodily function, even blinking. It tells your body when to blink. The brain is gray and wrinkly. It sends messages throughout your body. You might have even gone a little bit farther and said that there are different parts of the brain. One of the parts is the cerebral cortex, which involves your thinking and moving. And it also involves your senses. And then you have your cerebellum, which is your balance and your muscles, so that's what helps you move. And then you have your brainstem, which is back here in the back. Okay? Your brainstem is what helps your body function. Okay? It controls all that. And that is connected to your spinal cord. So your spine is the next thing. I'm trying to make sure I don't leave out any details that you might have had. So for the spinal cord, the spine itself is made of bones, all right, and it protects the spinal cord. And the spinal cord is a thick bundle of almost like wires. So they're nerves that carry messages all over your body, and they're connected all over your body. So kind of think of when you have like your TV and maybe a DVD player or game system, and you know all that stuff plugged in together, and how the wires get all tangled up. That's kind of how your spinal cord works. They're kind of all intermixed together, and they control different parts of your body. The next part, I believe, yes, is your leg muscles. Your leg muscles and any other muscle needs energy, and it uses food and oxygen from the blood, and it's controlled by the nerves. All right. Then we go into the nasal cavity. That's this part right here. You got some right here, and down here, and over here. That's why sometimes when your nose is all stuffy, your head starts hurting right here, and sometimes your face hurts right here, because your sinus cavity is all through there, okay? So it's part of your nose, you could say. It gets tickly when there's stuff inside there that shouldn't be, and that's what makes you sneeze. Again, that's your brain telling your body to sneeze to get it out. It is pretty much just a big open space. There's not a whole lot to say about it other than that. And then there was a spot on page 9 for other details. So I wrote down the kidneys, because if you look towards the end of your book, they were making a map of the human body, and so they have the kidneys, and the kidneys, what they do is they clean your blood, and they make your urine, and if you're not sure what urine is actually your pee. And so then after your kidney makes the urine, it has to go somewhere. It can't stay in your body, so then it goes to the bladder, and your bladder holds that. And then when it gets filled, well, it has to be emptied. It's kind of like a cup. It can only hold so much. And then you have your liver. Now your liver is pretty important because it makes bile, which helps you digest fatty foods, but it also stores vitamins and minerals, and when you have bad things in your body, it tries to help get rid of them. Sometimes people have liver damage and then their body doesn't work quite the way it's supposed to. So your liver is a pretty important thing. All right. So today is day 4, and I want to talk about the speech bubbles. In the book, you should have noticed that there were places where, like right here on this page, we see him and he's saying some things here. All right, we know that they're actually speaking because the little tail, that's what I'm going to call it. The little tail is sticking out and pointing towards the person. That's how we know that they're actually speaking. They're actually speaking out loud and saying those things. But over here, you see the dots. That means he's just thinking it. Okay, he's not actually saying it out loud. He's just thinking. So those are like think bubble dots. Okay, so you can tell when you're reading maybe a comic strip or something like that that has the speech bubbles, you can tell the difference when they're speaking out loud versus when they're just thinking about it. Let's see. If you look at page 6 and 7, let's see here, page 6 and 7, there's a lot of things going on these pages. There's some thinking, all right. Mrs. Frizzle is she's talking over here. So do these speech bubbles mean that we need to read it and worry about it? Yeah, they do. They actually give us information in this book. Sometimes that's all you have are speech bubbles, and they're telling you the different parts of the story, different information, things that are important. So make sure when you have books that do this that you pay attention to those speech bubbles, because they could have important pieces of information that you need. You might even go through and read some of those speech bubbles and see if there's anything else that you want to add to your other information page on page 9. All right. The other thing for this is your very last page in your book. Now, I don't expect yours to be great. This is not art class. So what I did was I took the diagram here and I drew in it, as you can see. And so I drew the brain, the esophagus, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the liver, the kidneys, the small intestine, some nerves, the bladder, the large intestines, all the things that they talked about in the book. I tried to use a diagram there to do the best I could. Obviously, it's a small space. Can't do a big, huge part of it, but I did the best I could. If you want to color it. That would be great. If you don't, you can just draw it. It's not, like I said, art class. You just do the best you can. But remember, the biggest thing with this book is all the text, whether it's a speech bubble, a thought bubble, the actual text of the book, or even these little side notes here. All of that information is important. So if you have a book that has those things, think about like our science or social studies books. Sometimes they have things over the side and you'll say, do I have to read that? Yeah, you do, because otherwise you'll miss out on the information that you might need to answer a question or two. All right, if you have any questions about today, you can have your grown-up contact me. Otherwise, tomorrow the only thing you have is your test, and you may use the book and your response booklet for that. All right, happy reading.